Hi everybody, welcome back to part 2 of this tutorial of using Plexus to build on text, just like in The Art of Flight. Real quick, if you didn't see it. So there we go. Let's turn this volume down here. Turn the volume down here so we aren't not overwhelmed. So as the text builds on using Plexus. And now what we're going to do is show you how to incorporate Plexus, incorporate the text using Plexus into the scene, like here in this shot. They have it connected to some trees in the background, in the foreground, to the snow here, to the mountain peaks here in the shot. And it's really easy to do. So we're going to get going. All right. And I'm showing you how to do it with this footage that I have that I put together using the same technique. Alright, and we're going to incorporate this text into this shot, connect it to the C on the head tube here, the bicycle. Alright, so we have the titles built and our little extra Plexus flying out here. So now what we're going to do is let's turn on our footage again. And let's do it a little bit better, pre-comp again. Let's do full, let's do text Plexus. Okay. Alright, now we have it. Now we can reposition this whole thing down here. Get rid of this null object for now. Everything moves appropriately. Flies out to where it should fly out to. Alright, cool. So I want it about here. And now I want to connect a few of the letters to this C here of the head tube. So what we're going to need to do is create some points on the letters for the beginning points, and then some points that are tracked to the head tube for the end points, and then we'll create a line renderer between the two. So first things first, let's create 3 points for the beginning part of our Plexus. We're going to use lights for that because that's what Plexus likes to use. New, light, point lights. Intensity doesn't really matter on these since we're just using them as points. Awesome, don't care. And let's set this to 0. And I want it to connect to, zoom in here for a better look. I'd like it to connect to, let's say, the top of this N. And we're going to call this T light 1, T for text, because we're going to need to put lights that we create for this, as well as the tracking points, in 2 different groups once we make the Plexus. So we're going to call this T light 1, duplicate it twice, so we want 2 more points. Let's make another one, connect to the bottom of this E, and the last one connect to, let's say, the top of the G here. Cool. So those are positioned. Now, we could hand track these, but that's annoying. So what we're going to do is use Mocha to track. So we're going to select the raw footage, animation, track in Mocha AE. Mocha Pro is going to launch on my machine because that's what I have installed. However, Mocha for AE will work just as well. Where are we at? New project pops up. Frame range is correct. Frame rate is correct. Go to advanced. I like to cache the clip so we can scrub through it quicker. Everything's right. Leave everything there. Okay. I'm going to go start at the end. At the beginning of the shot, you can see it's a little bit out of focus. Mocha doesn't mind that at all, but let's start at the end where it's in focus, and it will help us for the remainder of the track. Now, there are going to be 2 things I want to track here. I want to track the head tube, and I also want to track this cable here because, as you can see in my example, some of these lines go past the tube here, or past the cable routing here, and you can actually see I left my mat on when I rendered this clip out, so that was a mistake. We won't make that mistake this time though. So let's create a new spline. I want the lines to connect to the front of the C, or the top of the C, the bottom of the C, and the end of the C here. However, since this is pretty much the same plane, the edges aren't, so we want to keep our track in the center. But we can track this whole area, and we only need to track it once, and then we can create new track points and offset them because it's on the same plane. So let's do that. Let's our surface, sure, it's a good place for our surface. We're going to call this head tube track. That awesome. And then we're going to track my cable routing. We're going to do cable track. Cool. Shear, definitely. He's coming towards the camera. Let's turn on perspective as well on all of these. We'll just leave everything default and see how it tracks through. So let's hit track backwards. Now they both look pretty good, so let's turn on the surface in the grid here. Let's yeah, that looks pretty good. Everything's staying in line here. These lines here. And that little jostle at the beginning looks like it's pretty good. Ooh, the one thing that is incorrect is my cable routing. It's all wonky here, and you can see it gets wonky because of the sunlight that's on the tube. It's fine for most of it. No, it's sunlight messes everything up there. So you know what? We're going to fake this because it's close enough to be. It's not on the same plane. It goes in front of the head tube, but because this shot is so short, we're just going to steal one of these track points and use it for the mat on here, and we'll have to manually adjust it a little bit, but it shouldn't be a problem. So now that's tracked, and this is going to give us a track point right in the center here of the head tube. We don't want our point to be at the center of the head tube. We want these points here at the end. So what I'm going to do is create 3 more little track points. And there's always different ways to do things. I'm going to do it this way. Create a new track point. Right there. We're going to call this C1. And we're going to link this to the head tube track. Now when we play through this, it's going to use the tracking data from this to apply to that little point. And what's going to happen when we export the tracking data for this point is we're going to get a null object placed right in the center of this track point. That's what Mocha does. After it finishes the track, it gives you, and when you just export the transform data, it gives you one point that's right in the center of that track that you created. But since we don't want to use a point here in the center of this track, we want it in the center of this track. So I just create another little track point, and we're going to do that for all 3 of these little points here. And actually a triangle is a good way to do that too. Call this C2, link to head tube track, and C3, link to head tube track. And I know it's not perfect, but one, we're not doing a feature film here, but it should always still look as as good as it could. But 2, because of the plexus that we're using, or because we're using the plexus to connect these things, you're really not going to see it. So the question you always want to ask yourself is it worth the time to make it incrementally better, or are people really not going to see it? You're going to see it because you made it, but is anybody else who's watching this going to see it? Most of the time the answer to that question is no. So let's do C1, export tracking data, copy to clipboard, go back to After Effects. Let's create Command Option Shift Y for new null. We're going to do, come on now, we're going to hit enter to rename it, C1 tracker, and let's just duplicate this twice. We're going to do C2 tracker, C3 tracker. Awesome. So C1, paste our data, U, anchor point, select all, reset, stuck right to the end of our C there. C2, let's go back to Mocha, C2, export tracking data, copy, C2, paste, U, anchor, reset, stuck there, and C3, go back to Mocha Pro, C3, export, copy, let's go back, paste it on, U to bring up all the keyframes, select the anchor point, click on the stopwatch to get rid of it, right click, reset, and now we have all three of our points stuck to where we want them. Now, the thing about Plexus is it doesn't use null objects to create points. So with 1, 2, 3 points here, what we could do is create a new light, copy the data, paste it onto the light, make sure everything is right, and then go from there. But say we wanted to track 20, 30 points in this scene, or even more. Going through and doing that one after the other is extremely tedious. So there's a really cool script called null swapper, and that's basically what it does. So I'm gonna duplicate these and bring them down to the bottom and turn them off just so we have a copy. Because when it swaps the nulls, it deletes the nulls. But here we go to After Effects, File, Scripts, Null Swapper. The dialog comes up, hit swap. And it's going to take a second because of all the keyframes that are on there. See, it's transferring all the keyframes. What this is doing is it transfers all the keyframes and creates a light with the exact same name as the null object that was there. Nulls were 2D, not 3D. X and Y data was transferred. Yes, that's fine. If we had Z position data on the null objects, or if they were 3D objects before we had swapped them, we wouldn't have gotten this. No, I don't want to see a list of the layers. Let's close that dialog. So once we hit position here, we'll see these are at 0 already. So the lights we created earlier at 0 are great because these are going to be at 0 as well. When you use the line renderer in Plexus, the minimum distance that it uses also takes into account Z distance. So if we had kept these at -444 and aligned them up so they're in the right place visually with the shot, but these are at 0, not only are they as many pixels away this vertically and horizontally, but they're also going to be an extra 444 pixels away in Z depth. So for this particular situation here, especially because we haven't created a camera and there's no 3D camera motion, we don't really care about that Z depth here. So now that we have these, and actually real quick, let me pop open Firefox here real quick, and we'll just Google this real quick, null swapper, and it pops up right at the top. Null swapper. It's a free script. You can see it helps out with trap code too, because you can use lights and trap code particular. So if you have any instances where you take tracking data, apply it to a null object, and you want to quickly convert it to lights so you can use it for particular or Plexus, this script is great, free. It's a wonderful thing. So now that we're back here, we need to create one more Plexus to connect these points together. So let's do Plexus again, effect Plexus, and now we want 2 points renderers, group 1, group 2. Let's do 1, 1. Let's do geometry, layer, lights, point lights. You can use spotlights if you want, but you need to make sure you set this dialog. Point lights is the default, so whenever I create lights, I just make them point lights. You don't have to worry about this. Our layer names are in group 1. Let's say group 1 is the bicycle or the C, so we have our C layers. Okay. And then we don't want to get color from layers. We want color to be black. You can get the layers, the color from the light layers. If you open this up, you can change this to black if you want. Either way, Plexus black. Let's duplicate this, and we're going to rename it right away. We're going to name this T layers object, and this is C layers object, and we need to change this to T. Okay. Points renderer, do C points renderer, T points renderer. Group 2, we need to change this to group 2 here. And then just so we can see them, let's boost it all the way up so you can see that the points actually do exist. There they are. We just want it to be 1 and 1. There we go. And we need to do not an effector. We want a lines renderer, and we want to do it between different groups. We can either do it between the 2 different groups here, or if we had more groups, we can just select 2 groups and then select group 1 and group 2, or whatever groups we have assigned to them. Either way will work. Let's do one of these and one of these. I want to boost this up so they start to connect here. Let's do 5, maybe like 590 here. Because you'll see as this moves away, the effect we wanted was that they're not always connected. See, as it gets farther away, it's not, they disappear from the N, starts to disappear from the E. So why don't we go to the farthest away spot and see, which is right about there, and then we play with this distance and see where we're at. I always want a couple, and I think maybe I want it like that. So these start to disappear. Like, we don't want all the E's to go away. So let's just leave the 1 there. So it looks like, 547 looks like a good distance. And then as it gets closer, we can see even here it's not, they're not fully connected. There's just 1 connected there. I want my line thickness to be a little thinner, maybe 0.5. And then maybe we'll boost this up a little bit so we can see them a little better. 569 looks all right. There we go. Now we can Command-Shift-H again to get rid of the layer. Layer helpers there. I'm going to go ahead and say I don't want the points on my C. So we're just going to turn off my points renderer. We don't really need them. Plexus will still connect to the points, even though there's not a point there. It's connecting to the light, to the position there. So we're almost done here. All we need to do is make a little mask here for our cable housing so that these lines go underneath. And again, to mask out Plexus, we need to pre-comp it. So let's, and actually before we pre-comp it, I made these extra trackers here, and we're going to want one of them, probably two, number 2 here. There it is. Because we're going to use this to help with the cable routing here for the tracking there. So before you pre-comp it, if you're going to do this, make sure you have an extra copy of your tracker, or you'll just have to copy it again out of your pre-comp and then bring it back into this one. So we'll grab all this, Command-Shift-C to pre-comp. We're going to do, say, Plexus lines pre-comp. Okay. I'm also going to put it below that, below the text. So these points are below the text, actually. And let's make a quick little mat for a cable routing. Cable mat. Make it white. Okay, let's turn the opacity down so the layer is on, but we can still see it. Let's draw a little mask around our cable routing. Here. Feather it a little bit, maybe let's say 2 pixels. Set our mask path there, and then parent it to C tracker 2. And then we'll just scrub through to make sure everything is about right. Now the last step here is to duplicate our footage, put it on top, turn the opacity back up on this one, and then make track matte, Luma matte, and now our Plexus is behind those cables. See as we scrub through the shot. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. And there we go. Let's do a quick RAM preview. And there we go. How to build on your titles, give it a little extra flair, and then attach these titles to something in your shot. It's really not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of time to get everything set up right, and then you're good to go. Plexus is weird because it looks really complicated. Everything that it creates looks really difficult, but the actual creation of the Plexus is really easy. It's just it takes some time to set it all up to get it to work right. So there you go. Once again, I'm Gardner Raymond for ConsequenceVideoDesigns.com. Thanks again for checking out this tutorial, and I hope to see you back, figuratively, of course, for another one in the future. Have a great day. Bye.